In October 2023, the White House Instagram account posted a photograph of President Joe Biden shaking hands with American soldiers in Israel. The image showed four men wearing American flag patches, their faces completely visible, their tattoos clearly identifiable. Within minutes, military veterans across social media recognized them as members of the Combat Applications Group, Delta Force. The photo stayed up for over an hour. It collected thousands of likes and was viewed by hundreds of thousands of people before someone on the White House staff realized what had happened and deleted the post. A government watchdog organization filed a formal complaint with the Department of Justice, arguing the photo may have violated the Espionage Act. Pentagon standard practice requires all images of Delta operators to have their faces blurred or blacked out before release. The White House issued a brief apology, but the damage was already done. That single photograph exposed something the Department of Defense has spent nearly 50 years trying to protect: the identities of men who are never supposed to exist in any public space, anywhere, for any reason. And to understand why one Instagram post triggered a potential federal investigation, you have to understand the extreme secrecy machine that surrounds America's most classified military unit. Here's the strange part about Delta Force. The United States government has never officially confirmed what it does. The unit has been redesignated multiple times over the decades precisely to maintain deniability. First Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta. Government Delta, then the Combat Applications Group, then Army Compartmented Elements. The operators themselves use none of these labels. Inside the walls of Fort Liberty, North Carolina, they call it simply the unit. When Colonel Charlie Beckwith founded Delta Force in 1977, he built it on a blueprint he brought back from a tour with the British Special Air Service in Malaya. Beckwith had served as an exchange officer with 22 SAS Regiment and came away convinced that the American military had nothing comparable. The SAS operated on a principle that Beckwith considered non-negotiable. Anonymity is not a byproduct of the mission. Anonymity is the mission. A special operations soldier who appears in a newspaper, on a television broadcast, or in a social media post has been permanently compromised. That operator can never again work undercover in a hostile city, never pass through a foreign checkpoint without risk, never operate in a low-visibility environment where recognition means capture or death. Beckwith embedded this philosophy into Delta's organizational DNA from day one at Fort Bragg. And it went far beyond simply telling operators to keep quiet. Eric Haney, one of the earliest members assigned to the unit, later described what happened when he reported for duty. His name was pulled from every conventional Army database. His service records were transferred to a completely separate system that the regular military could not access. His personnel file, his training records, his very existence within the armed forces effectively vanished. As Haney put it, the moment you join Delta Force, you cease to exist in the regular Army. This is not a figure of speech. Delta operators routinely tell their own families that they work a desk job at the installation. Their neighbors, their extended relatives, their children's school teachers, none of them know. The cover stories are maintained for years, sometimes for entire careers, and every operator signs a lifetime non-disclosure agreement that carries the weight of the Uniform Code of Military Justice behind it. Violations do not result in a reprimand or a reassignment. They can trigger federal prosecution under intelligence disclosure statutes. Even the awards ceremonies are classified. When a Delta operator earns a Medal for Valor during a combat deployment, that medal is not presented at a formation in front of the regiment. There is no public record of the commendation. The ceremony happens behind closed doors, witnessed only by other members of the unit. Several of America's most decorated living combat soldiers have never had their names appear in any public database, any news article, or any government press release. Their sacrifices exist only in classified filing cabinets and in the memories of the men who served beside them. Now compare that to the Navy SEALs. The SEAL community has produced some of the best-selling military memoirs in American publishing history. Marcus Luttrell's account of Operation Red Wings became a major motion picture. Chris Kyle's autobiography was adapted into a Clint Eastwood film that grossed over $500 million worldwide. And after the 2011 raid that killed Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, Pakistan, A SEAL Team 6 operator published his own account of the mission under the pseudonym Mark Owen before the government could even finish classifying the details. The bin Laden raid turned the SEAL Team 6 into a global brand overnight. Feature films were produced, documentaries aired on every major network. The identities of individual operators gradually surfaced in news reports and leaked government communications. The Navy SEAL name became synonymous with American Special Operations in the minds of the public. And here's the part that will start arguments in the comments. Many people within the Delta Force community view this entire phenomenon as an operational security failure, not a cultural difference. When a SEAL operator writes a memoir, every detail in that book becomes intelligence that adversaries can study, cross-reference, and exploit. When an operator's face appears on a television screen, facial recognition software in hostile countries can flag that face at every border crossing and every airport security checkpoint on the planet. The SEALs have paid a price for their visibility that most people outside the special operations community do not fully appreciate. Delta operators, by contrast, can still walk through the streets of a foreign capital without triggering a single alert. They can meet with intelligence assets, conduct surveillance, and operate in plain clothes across dozens of countries because no photograph of their face has ever been published, no name has ever appeared in a book jacket bio, and no journalist has ever been able to confirm which missions they participated in. That is not arrogance. That is a tactical capability that took 50 years to build and that one careless Instagram post nearly destroyed. If you are learning things about Delta Force in this video that you have never heard anywhere else, consider subscribing. This channel covers the operational culture of America's Tier 1 units every week, and the story gets more complicated from here, because the silence is not absolute. It has been broken before, and the fallout tells you everything about how seriously Delta takes this code. In 2002, a retired Command Sergeant Major named Eric Haney published a memoir titled Inside Delta Force. Haney had been one of the earliest operators assigned to the unit in the late 1970s. He participated in Operation Eagle Claw, the failed 1980 attempt to rescue American hostages in Tehran, Iran. He served across Latin America, the Middle East, and the Caribbean during some of the most intense covert operations of the Cold War. The book became a bestseller. It was eventually adapted into a CBS television series called The Unit, with Haney serving as a writer and executive producer. For the general public, the memoir was a revelation. For the first time, someone who had actually served inside Delta Force was describing the selection process, the training methodology, and the operational culture of America's most secretive military unit. Inside the special operations community, the reaction was very different. 3 of Haney's former colleagues publicly accused him of embellishing his accomplishments and fabricating events described in the book. Logan Fitch, a respected Delta veteran who had himself written about the Eagle Claw mission years earlier, called Haney a crass opportunist for capitalizing on his service. Others criticized him for revealing details about Delta's training procedures and early missions that they believed should have remained classified. The controversy fractured relationships that had been forged in some of the most dangerous operations in American military history. But here's the nuance that most people miss. The community's fury was not just about what Haney revealed. It was about what his decision represented. By going public, Haney violated the foundational principle that Beckwith had established when the unit was created. The idea that a Delta operator's loyalty to silence outlasts their active service. That the commitment to anonymity is not a temporary condition tied to a security clearance. It is a permanent identity. Contrast Haney's approach with that of Pete Blaber, another former Delta commander who published a book called The Mission, the Men, and Me. Blaber's book focused entirely on leadership principles and decision-making frameworks drawn from his time in special operations. He discussed philosophy, not tactics. He shared mental models, not operational specifics. He never identified living operators by their real names. He never described current unit capabilities or techniques. Within the Delta community, Blaber's book is considered the acceptable line. Share the thinking. Never share the tools. That distinction might seem subtle to an outsider, but inside the special operations world, It is the difference between a respected elder passing down wisdom and a traitor selling secrets. And this brings us back to that photograph on Instagram. The White House incident in Israel was not caused by a malicious leak. It was caused by a social media staffer who did not understand the protocols surrounding Tier 1 operators. Someone who did not know that the Department of Defense requires all images of Delta Force members to have identifying features obscured before any public release. Someone who looked at a photograph of American soldiers meeting their commander-in-chief and saw a patriotic moment worth sharing, not a potential violation of federal law. That is the real vulnerability in the system. Delta Force can control what its own operators say. It can enforce non-disclosure agreements, threaten prosecution, and maintain a culture of silence that has held for nearly 5 decades. But it cannot control what a 20-something social media manager at the White House decides to post on Instagram at 11 o'clock at night. The faces of those 4 operators were seen by hundreds of thousands of people in the hour before the post was deleted. Screenshots circulated across Twitter, Reddit, and military forums. Facial recognition databases operated by foreign intelligence services almost certainly captured and cataloged the images. For those 4 men, the operational anonymity that Delta Force spent decades building around them was potentially erased in 60 minutes by someone who did not understand what they were looking at. Colonel Beckwith died in '94, long before social media existed. But the threat he anticipated when he designed Delta's secrecy protocols has only grown more dangerous in the decades since. In 1977, an operator's photograph might appear in a single newspaper edition and then disappear. Today, one unredacted image lives permanently on the internet, searchable, downloadable, and analyzable by machine learning systems that did not exist when these protocols were written. Delta Force remains the most secretive operational military unit in the Western world. Its operators still maintain cover stories with their own families. They still receive classified medals in closed-code ceremonies. They still refer to their organization only as the unit. But the world they operate in has changed, and the question now is not whether Delta's culture of silence can survive. The question is whether any institution can maintain true secrecy in an age where one careless photo can undo 50 years of operational discipline. The SEALs chose visibility, and they became the most famous special operations force on the planet. Delta chose silence, and they became something arguably more valuable. They became invisible. And in the world of counterterrorism, hostage rescue, and covert direct action, invisible is the only thing that keeps you alive.